Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sharmila, Department of Industry and Biotechnology, Bharat University. Today, I am going to discuss about food process engineering. The topic that is food spoilage and disease-causing organisms. The food spoilage can be defined as any changes in the visual, smell, texture of food that makes it unacceptable for human consumption or unwanted or undesirable for human consumption. The food spoilage is the process in which the food deteriorates to the point it is not edible to humans or its quality of edibility becomes reduced. Next, the food spoilage can be the result of insect damage, physical injury, enzymatic degradation, and microbial activity. Food spoilage, that is, fitness of food, causes of food spoilage, and foodborne diseases, that is, food infection and food intoxication, then food quality uncontrolled, the deterioration of food quality. What is foodborne infection? A foodborne infection is an inflammation of the stomach and bowels. The infection can happen when you eat or drink something that is contaminated by microorganisms, that is, any bacteria, virus, or parasites. The microorganisms, often the inflammation leads to diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, abdominal cramps, and sometimes fever. A foodborne infection can last between 1 and 3 days. Many foodborne infections occur at people's homes, that is simply due to poor hygiene. It is easy as this: when preparing food without hand washing after visiting the toilet. The cross contamination is also a risk, that is sometimes happens. Even using the same knife to choke both cause the contamination by foodborne pathogens. Then eating meat or fish that is not cooked all the way through or eating raw shellfish increases the risk of foodborne infections. Next, here we have to see that this 4 points for the food spoilage, that is microbial attack and food degradation. Changes appear as a result of food spoilage, enzymatic reaction, or decomposition. Microbial attack, that is the microorganisms. As I told you, microbial, that is the organisms, that is any bacteria, it may be any bacteria, any virus, any parasites. Okay, the microorganisms, it will attack the food items or food materials. Then the food material, it will be degraded, the nature will spoil. Then it will, when the microorganisms, it will enter into the food material, what will happen? Changes appear as a result of food spoilage. Okay, definitely we can the changes we can see, we can able to see the changes in the food materials. Then that enzymatic reaction or decomposition. First, the microorganisms, it will attack. That is, it will go to the food materials. Then the food will degraded. I mean the original nature, it will spoil. Okay. Then changes appear as a result of food spoilage. Then enzymatic reaction or decomposition. Next, the microbial spoilage of food. Bacteria, yeast, and mold are the major causes of food spoilage. These microorganisms, they produce various enzymes that decompose the various constituents of food. Then, the mold are the major causes of spoilage of foods with reduced water activity. Example, dry cereals and cereal product. Then the bacteria spoils foods with relatively high water activity such as milk and milk products. What are the common causes of food spoilage? That is, first point, inadequate storage temperature, prolonged storage times, improper ventilation, cross contamination, excessive delays between receiving and storing. Okay, these are all the common causes of food spoilage. First one, inadequate storage temperature, but that is the temperature that should be maintained properly. Then the storage time also we need to consider. Then we have to give that proper ventilation. But sometimes what we are doing, that the improper ventilation we are giving. That is what the food items get spoiled. Then cross contamination, excessive delays, that is between the receiving and storing the food items. Because of these reasons, okay, because of this reason, these food items becomes spoiled. Next, the microbial food spoilage occurs as a consequence of either microbial growth or release of extracellular and intracellular enzymes in the food environment. Then signs of what are the common signs of spoilage of different types of food. First point, we can see the color. The changes in color, we can see that texture, the texture, food materials texture will be changed. Then changes in water, then slime formation, accumulation of gas or foam, accumulation of liquid. Spoilage by microbial growth occurs faster than spoilage by microbial extracellular or intracellular enzymes in the absence of viable microbial cells. The changes in color, changes in odor, changes in texture, that is accumulation of gas and accumulation of liquid. Fungal extracellular enzyme activity, that is extracellular enzymes or exoenzymes are synthesized inside the cell and then secreted outside the cell, where their function is to break down complex macromolecules into smaller units to be taken up by the cell for growth and assimilation. The intracellular enzymes are the enzymes that are synthesized and retained within the cell for the internal cellular use. Extracellular enzymes are the enzymes that are synthesized by the cell and secreted to the outside for the external use. Fitness of a food. A food is said to be fit if a consumer with knowledge of the details of its production eats on seeing the material itself. Conversely, the food is considered to be the spoiled and is unfit for the consumption when consumers refuse it as a food. Then action of microorganism and food. How the microorganisms attack the food, that is already I told you. Then in this slides I'll tell you the microorganisms mainly include the bacteria, yeast and mold. In case of bacteria, we can take an example of Streptococcus lactis and coliform bacteria which show a metabolic effect. The bacteria, that is Streptococcus lactis, and the coliform bacteria, that is it affects the food materials. The raw milk, which supports the acid fermentation by the growth of these two microorganisms, and the acid formed inhibitors their growth. Afterwards, a film of yeast and mold grow over the top and thus reduce the acidity, facilitating the growth of pyrolytic bacteria. Then this is caused by bacteria. You can see these slides, okay, how the bacteria is growing. The colonies you can see, okay, you can be able to see the colonies. These colonies is causing the effects, it causing the damage to the food items. Then I'll tell you what are the foodborne diseases. What are the foodborne diseases. First, that is botulism, that is spore forming, that is bacteria, Clostridium botulinum, that is anaerobic bacteria, that is organism produce a neurotoxin. Then type of illness, that is bacterial intoxication, onset time, that is 12 to 36 hours, symptoms dizziness, double vision, difficulty in breathing and swallowing. Then food sources, that is improperly canned food, vacuum packed refrigerated foods. Okay, first the foodborne diseases, that is spore forming disease, that is bacteria, Clostridium botulinum, that is the anaerobic bacteria. Anaerobic bacteria means without aeration. Okay, without aeration also the bacteria, it will grow this organism, it will produce the neurotoxin. That the symptoms, once the disease comes to the human being, the symptoms are dizziness, double vision, we can't able to see clearly, that is double vision. And they will have the problem with breathing. Okay, they will feel that difficulties in breathing and swallowing. Why that disease is comes to the human being, that is because of the food sources. Okay, so improperly canned food, vacuum packed and refrigerated foods. Improperly canned food, so when you are the canned food, that should be packed. Okay, fully sterilized, then only it should be packed. If it is improper, definitely the symptoms it will come to human being. Then the disease also it will come, then so many symptoms, that is a dizziness, double vision, difficulty in breathing and swallowing. So we need to avoid, because of the refrigerated foods also, the disease it will come, because we should avoid when we are taking the refrigerated foods. Then E. coli infection. E. coli also one of the bacteria. Because of this Escherichia coli, what is the disease is coming, and what are the symptoms that we are facing? This E. coli bacteria, it produce Giardiasis, a poisonous substances. That is, it is a facultative anaerobic bacteria. Then the type of illness, that is bacterial infection, that onset time, that is 3 to 8 days, and symptoms, that is bloody diarrhea followed by kidney failure. Once this disease comes, it will leads to kidney failure, and so it will happen. So the food sources, that is undercooked ground beef, unpasteurized apple juice, undercooked fruits and vegetables, raw milk, dairy product. Because of these food sources, this disease, that is it will come to the human being. Then listeriosis. Okay, the bacteria, that is this disease, that is facultative anaerobic bacteria, that is ability to survive in high salt food, and it can grow at refrigerated temperature. Then type of illness, bacterial infection, that onset time 3 to 70 days. The symptoms are headache, stiff neck, confusion, loss of balance, dangerous for pregnant. These are all the symptoms it will come. Then food sources, that is raw milk, meat, refrigerated, ready to eat foods, soft cheeses. So once that the bacteria, the species Listeria monocytogenes. Because of this species, the disease is call it as Listeriosis. Okay, so this bacteria, it can able to survive in high salt food, and it can grow at a refrigerated temperature. So the symptoms are headache, stiff neck, confusion, loss of balance, and dangerous for pregnant. So when and why it's coming? This is the listeriosis. Why it's coming means That is because of the food sources like raw milk, meat, refrigerated, ready to eat foods, and soft cheeses. Then, then another disease that is salmonellosis. Okay, this is also a kind of bacterial disease. The bacteria is like salmonella bacteria. Then that this is this bacteria that is a facultative anaerobic bacteria, fecal contamination, type of illness, bacterial infection, symptoms that is stomach cramps, diarrhea, headache, nausea, fever, vomiting. When it comes, okay, the salmonellosis, when it comes means that when you are I mean that food sources, soil, insect, raw meat, fish, egg, raw salad, then sliced fruits and vegetables. Okay, better we have to, when you are taking the food, we should be fully boiled. Most of the disease that is comes because of that unboiled. Okay, right. Shigellosis. The bacteria, Shigella bacteria, facultative anaerobic bacteria. It comes from human intestine, polluted water spread by flies and food handlers. Comes from human intestines, polluted water spread by food handlers. Then type of illness, bacterial infection, diarrhea, fever, abdominal cramps, and dehydration. Then food sources, that is foods that are prepared by human contacts, salads, ready to eat meats, pasta, salads, lettuce, etc. Next disease, that is the Staphylococcus illness. Okay, this is also the bacterial diseases. This Staphylococcal illness is because of the Staphylococcus aureus, the disease causing organism, that is Staphylococcus aureus. This is a facultative anaerobic bacteria. It can grow in cooked or safe foods that are recontaminated. Okay, it can grow even in the cooked food also. This is this bacteria that is commonly found in human skin, hands, hair, nose, and throat. And it can grow in high salt or high sugar and lower water activity. Then type of illness, bacterial intoxication. The symptoms, that is nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, and headache. Then food sources, the foods that are prepared by human contacts leftover, meat, egg, egg products, potato salad, and salad dressings. Then the disease caused by virus. There are more viruses on the air than stars in the universe, right? Next, already we have discussed what are the bacterial diseases and what are the illness and symptoms. What are the symptoms and that we have discussed. Hepatitis C, virus hepatovirus or hepatitis A virus, found in human intestinal and urinary tract and contaminated water. The symptoms are, that is fever, fatigue, headache, nausea, stomach pain, vomiting, and jaundice. The incubation time, that is 2 to 10 months after contaminated food and water is consumed. The food sources, oyster, raw vegetable. Now you can see the eyes, okay, in the slides, uh, that a hepatitis A patient with jaundice. You can see their eyes, okay, it looks like yellow. Then this is the another image, that is hepatitis A virus, that is hepatovirus or hepatitis A virus. Next is Norwalk virus. The symptoms, that is nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, headache, lower grade fever, etc. Then when it's coming to the disease, the symptoms, that is food sources, contaminated water, shellfish from contaminated water, then fruits and vegetables. That when you are taking the contaminated fruits and vegetables, etc. Then rotavirus. The rotavirus, we know that even the rota vaccine also for infants, they will take that rotavirus vaccine. They used to give for the only for young baby. Okay, to 6 months, they used to give that rota vaccine. The virus cause disease like rotavirus gastroenteritis. It is the leading cause of severe diarrhea among infant and children. The symptoms: vomiting, low grade fever, watery diarrhea. The transmission: person to person spread through contaminated hands. Okay, right. Next is this is caused by fungi. That is, you can see most of the human being toes, the nail, you can see it will be like this. Okay, you can see this. Okay, this color instead of normal uh, nail, it will be like this because of this is also fungal disease. Next is mold. The individual mold cells are microscopic. They grow quickly and they become visible. The mold spoil foods, causing discoloration and unpleasant smell. The mold produces toxins, some of which relate to cancer and cause allergies. Then aflatoxin can cause liver diseases. Although the cells and spores can be killed by heating to 140 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes, the toxins are heat stable and are not destroyed. Okay, the mold that is produce toxins, some of which relate to cancer and cause allergies. Okay, so that much adverse effect to the human being. The aflatoxin can cause liver diseases, and although the cells and spores can be killed by heating 140 Fahrenheit for 10 minutes, then also the toxins are heat stable and are not destroyed. Next is yeast. Like mold, the yeast can cause food spoilage. The foods such as jellies, honey, syrup, fruit juices are most likely loved by yeast. The evidence of bubbles and alcoholic smell or taste are the sign where the foods have the presence of yeast. Okay? You might have the experience, the evidence of bubbles. See in the image you can see an alcoholic smell. If you smell it, you can feel that alcohol smell. Taste or the sign where foods have the presence of yeast. Discard any foods that has the evidence of yeast. This is caused by parasites, Giardia, Cyclospora, etc. So you can see the parasites. Okay, then cycloporiasis, the parasites. Okay, because of the parasite, what is the symptom? What are the food sources? Okay, that I'll tell you. The Cyclospora species, the symptoms are infections that infect the smell intestines, watery diarrhea, loss of appetite, bloating, stomach cramps, nausea, vomiting, and low-grade fever. Then, what are the food sources? Okay, berries and lettuce, fresh herbs, etc. This is cycloporiasis. Next is Giardiasis. The parasite Giardia species. A single cell microorganism is called protozoa. A single cell microorganism is called the protozoa. The symptoms are diarrhea, stomach cramps, nausea. The food sources, that is undercooked pork. Okay, when you are taking the undercooked pork, that the disease, that is giardiasis, it will come. Okay, next, trichinosis. The parasite Trichinosa spiralasis. This parasite looks like small, hairy, round worm. The symptoms: nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain. The later stage are fever, swelling of tissue around the eyes, muscle stiffness, and sometimes it will leads to death also. Okay, so because see how it create the serious problem. Okay, it will leads to death. The common symptoms: nausea, vomiting, then abdominal pain that we can tolerate. So after that, later stage, fever, then swelling of tissue around the eyes. Around the eyes you can see the swelling, then muscle stiffness and death. Then the food sources: undercooked pork and sausages, ground meats contaminated through meat grinders. Next, the disease caused by toxins. Okay, already we have discussed what are the bacteria disease, what are the disease caused by uh, parasites, what are the disease caused by fungal. So fungal attack, bacterial diseases, and parasitic diseases. That and all we have discussed. And what are the symptoms? What are the food sources? What are the sources? Okay, that and all we have discussed. So this is caused by toxin. Okay, here the top 12 toxins in the personal care product. Okay, what is toxin? The toxins are toxicants or poisonous substances are produced by living organism and generally not well defined chemically. Okay, depending on origin, the toxins that is classified: bacterial toxin, mycotoxin, zootoxin, and phytotoxins. Okay, toxin. What is toxin? Toxicants are poisonous substances. Some organisms and their toxins. The organisms and toxins. Organism, that is bacteria. What is the toxin that is produced by bacteria? Botulinum toxin, Staphylococcus toxin. Then what is the toxin produced by fungi? Aflatoxin, mycotoxin, aflatoxin, cutulin. Then toxic algae, that is oxalic acid. The natural toxin, histamine and glycolides. Okay, these are all the important toxins that is produced by bacteria, fungi, toxic algae, toxic. Then what are the characteristics features of the toxins? Then that is non-replicative. Most are proteinaceous, then non-transmittable, that is human to human, then non-volatile, colorless, odorless, tasteless, then most are stable at standard conditions. Then aflatoxin, the agent Aspergillus flavus. Aflatoxin, that is B1, B2, G1, G2. B1 is the most common. The toxicity 0.5 to 10 mg per kg. Aspergillus flavus, that is the aflatoxin. The diseases: liver cancer, chronic hepatitis, jaundice, cirrhosis, cause acute toxicity and potentially death. The food sources: peanuts and peanut butter, tree nuts such as pecan corn, wheat oil seed such as cotton seed. Then acrotoxin, that is Aspergillus acroides, that is tolerable weekly intake 120 mg per kg. It has genotoxic and teratogenic effect. Then the toxicity, no documented acute toxicity in humans. The food sources are soybean, coffee bean, grapes, peanuts, and cereals. The next is patchouli. The agent Aspergillus clavatus, that is Penicillium expansum. Its provisional maximum tolerable daily intake 0.4 mg per kg. Relatively heat stable and not destroyed by pasteurization. The toxicity, no documented acute toxicity. The food sources apple and apple juice, pears, grapes, bilberries may affect. Then, physical contaminant. A physical contaminant is any extraneous object or foreign matter in a food item which may cause illness or injury to a person consuming the product. For example, glass, metal, wood, stone, plastic, bone, bullet, jewels, staying wire, etc. The symptoms nausea and vomiting, diarrhea, headache, fever, and dizziness, even sometimes chest pain. The sources raw material, processing equipment, then employee practices. Then chemical contaminants. You see the chemical substances and any other compounds that may render a food unsafe for consumption. There's three types: naturally occurring, intentionally added, unintentionally added. We can divide three types: naturally occurring, intentionally added, unintentionally added. What is naturally occurring? The pyrrolase alkaloids, phytohemoagglutinin, these are naturally occurring. Then intentionally added preservatives, something like nitrites, sulfating agent, color additives. Then unintentionally added secondary direct and indirect, example lubricants, sanitizer, and paint. Then agricultural chemicals, pesticides, fungicides, and fertilizers. Then toxic elements and compounds, lead, zinc, mercury, and cyanide. In epidemiology and transmission, many foodborne illness are not recognized or go unreported for a variety of reasons. First, routine surveillance may not detect a mild foodborne illness. Secondly, some of the same pathogens that cause foodborne illness can also be transmitted in water or from person to person. Lastly, some pathogens are emerging and are not yield, that is identifiable or able to diagnosed. When considering these factors, the above listed number of illness, hospitalizations, and death may be the absolute. The transmission. The transmission of foodborne pathogens occurs via the oral route. How those pathogens contaminated food can vary based on the organism and its reservoir. That is, food handling, processing, cross contamination, and prior to serve. Some organisms rely on human reservoir, such as Norwalk virus and Shigella and Campylobacter. Then others have an animal reservoir, such as Campylobacter, Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria, and Toxoplasma. Then transmission. The contamination can occur at several points along the food chain. On the farm of, in the field, at the slaughter plant, during processing, at the point of sale, and at home. Okay, these reasons that disease that that organism will get transmitted and it cause the disease. On the farm or in the field, you can see the image at the slaughter plant. From there also, so much of diseases it will come to the human being. Then during the processing, if it is not proper, definitely that food become spoiled, and then when you are consuming the food materials, then definitely that you will get the disease. Next, at the point of sale, when they are selling and to selling place, no, there also there is a lot of chance, and at home, then people with a higher risk for foodborne illness, it include infants and pregnant women. Then you can see the image that immunocompromised individuals are usually at the greatest risk for this illness. See how they are suffering. Okay, the tissue swelling. You can see the tissue swelling. Next, to avoid all those things, we have to how to wash hands. We have to be maintain the very hygienic process. That how to wash the hands. Wet hands with warm water, soap and scrub for 20 seconds. Rinse under clean running water. Dry completely using a clean cloth or paper towel. Then wash hands after handling pets, using bathrooms or changing diaper, touching a cut or open sore, then handling food, sneezing, blowing nose and coughing. After and before, we have to wash our hands clear. Then clean during food preparation. Okay, wash cutting board, knives, utensils, and countertops in hot soapy water. After preparation, each food and before going on to the next. Then avoid spreading bacteria. Use paper towels or clean clothes to wipe up kitchen surfaces or spills. Okay. Use one cutting board for fresh produce and separate one for raw meat or poultry and seafood. Okay. The dangerous zone on a hot day, 90-degree Fahrenheit or higher, food should not left up for more than 1 hour. Recommendations, that is raw, that is unpasteurized milk or milk products, raw or partially cooked eggs and foods contaminating raw egg, then raw and undercooked meat and poultry, unpasteurized juice and raw sprouts. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching this.